Howdy folks, and welcome to the updated and improved Stamina Necromancer PvP build. Stamina Necromancer is a class that I absolutely love playing in PvP. They have fantastic survivability, very good damage output, and they are extremely fun to play. Now, previously I've had great success with using Pariah, Deadlands Assassin and Malakath. I made a video about that setup. I will link that video in the description below. But as the title says, this is the updated and improved Stamina Necromancer build. So, without any further ado, this is an Orc Necromancer. Orc is, in my opinion, the best race for this particular build and for stamina classes overall in PvP because of these two passives. Unflinching Rage, which increases your max health by 1000, and when you deal damage, any damage, you heal for 2.4k health every 4 seconds. And also the Swift Warrior passive, which increases your weapon and spell damage by 258, and it also reduces the cost of sprint by 12% and increases the movement speed bonus of sprint by 10%. Now, why this passive is extremely important for this build, I will get to that later on. But for now, let's say that combination of Orc, Necromancer and a Vampire stage 4 is just pure insanity. I put 34 points into health and 30 points into stamina, which gives me around 30k health and 26,500 stamina. I'm also using the Serpent Bundu Stone and Lava Food Soup and Salt Rice, which gives me 1528 stamina recovery. Using these two, the Serpent Bundu Stone and Lava Food Soup and Salt Rice, is extremely important because I'm a stage 4 vampire at all times, which means that the regular ability cost is increased by 12%. So having the stamina recovery as high as possible is crucial. Now, as you can see, the weapon damage is 4,800. It will go up to 5,700. But with this setup, it will go as high as 6,200. But I will get to that later on. The physical penetration is 8,700, which is very nice, and again, it will be even higher. Physical resistance is 18,600 on your front bar and 20,300 on your back bar, which is good. So these are the overall stats. Let's go to the skills. On the front bar, I'm using Blighted Blast Bones, which is extremely annoying skill or ability for your enemies, because every time it hits, it deals very, very respectable damage. As you can see, the tooltip says 13,800. If I buff up, it goes up to 15.5. And it also applies Major Defile for 4 seconds, reducing their healing received and health recovery. Now, there is a lot of healing in PvP. People have potions, people have heals, people have healers in their groups. So, reducing their healing received and health recovery is extremely useful. The second skill is Forward Momentum, I used to use Rally before, but I realized that I don't need all the healing or that much healing. So I switched to Forward Momentum, and this gives me 20% weapon damage as well as minor endurance, but it also removes and provides you with immunity to all snares and immobilizations, which is very nice because in PvP you will be constantly snared or immobilized or stunned or something like that. It's just annoying. So this is extremely useful skill. The third skill is Elusive Mist. You don't ever use this. It's there because of this vampire passive. Strike from shadows while you're at stage 2 vampire or higher. When you leave sneak, invisibility or mist form, your weapon and spell damage is increased by 300 for 6 seconds. So the damage I mentioned, the 6.2 thousand, that will go up by 300. All you have to do is use mist and press block. 5.1k. Unbuffed. And now it went down to 4.8. Again, mist, press block, and 300 more weapon and spell damage for 6 seconds. So every time you engage someone, use this. Elusive Mist, block, it takes half a second, and your damage is going up by 300. The next skill is the Executioner, which is the Execute. I know that people like the other morph that deals more damage to the enemies around the target, but I use the Executioner to kill one particular person, and this deals more damage to that particular person, so I use this morph. Your next skill is Dizzy Swing. Extremely fun skill to use. The good thing about this skill is that it has a built-in stun. It deals 11.5k physical damage and sets enemies off balance. And when you hit the enemies that are off balance with this, again, you stun them for 2 seconds. So you don't really need any additional stuns. And if they're immune to off balance, they are snared, which is very nice. The ultimate is the only ultimate you will ever need with this build. Swarming Scion. This does an insane amount of damage. Insane. This melts enemies, literally. As you can see, it's a pretty costly ultimate, but it's well worth it. Now, when you transform, your health, magic and stamina are increased by 10,000, which makes you almost unkillable. You heal for 16% of all the damage you deal, on top of that orc passive. And also, you have bats that swarm around you and shred enemies that come close, dealing 3.5k magic damage. Now if you buff up with this, look at this, 4.1k magic damage every 1 second. This is just pure insanity. This lasts for 20 seconds, so this is over 80,000 damage. Just from this ultimate. Over 80,000 damage to everyone around you. It's just insane. And I can tell you, this melts enemies. People usually use, with Necromancers, they can use the Dawnbreaker or Morphs. Sometimes even the Colossus or Morphs, or even the Bone Goliath. Do not use these. You don't need to. they will not do as much damage as this one, Swarming Scion. This is like, this should not be in game, if I'm being honest. So your back bar, your one-hand and shield bar. I'm using Intensive Mender. Again, I used to use the other morph that lasts longer and provides you with 10% damage reduction, but I realized that I like this burst healing a lot more than some damage reduction, and this one also costs less magicka. Like the other morph costs twice as much magicka than this one, and since you're a stamina character, you don't really have that much magicka, and you may need it. So Intensive Mender. The heal is more like burstier, if that's even a word. So I use this morph. The next one is Mortal Coil, which heals you and your allies for a lot of health. 22.5k health over 12 seconds. And you also restore 1300 stamina over 12 seconds. And also, while slotted, your healing done is increased by 3%. So this is fantastic healing and survivability skill. Plus sustain. The next skill, Pierce Armor. This is there to debuff the enemies. As you can see, it inflicts them with Major Breach and Major Breach and Minor Breach. And it also deals some damage, which is not really why you use this skill. You use this skill because you use the Master's Perfected Sword and Shield. As you can see, this gives you 3% healing taken, and when you deal damage with puncture or morphs, you heal for 5k health and gain spell and physical resistance equal to the amount of healing or overhealing done for 5 seconds. So you use this to debuff the enemies. This is 9k physical and spell penetration on top of your 8.7k. So altogether, this is almost 18k physical and spell penetration with this skill. Plus, it deals some damage, but it also heals you for 5k every time you use it, and also gives you resistances, even more than you have. So this is fantastic. Then we have the Summoner's Armor, which gives you Major Resolve, 6k resistances, and it also reduces the cost of Skeletal Mage and Blast Bones and Spirit Mender by 15%. So this, when you have this active, is cheaper. See? Instead of 2.4, it's 2.1. And also this. Right? So this is your primary or main damaging ability. You should have this up at all times. Up and running towards enemies. And this as well. The next skill is Resolving Vigor. 20.2k, 20.3k health over 4 seconds. Fantastic. Temporal Guard. This is there just to give you the minor protection, reducing your damage taken by 5%. And also, when you block, you have this bubble around you, which is this passive here from the Sijic Order skill line. When you have your Sijic ability slotted and are bracing, you gain a damage shield that absorbs 5k damage every 10 seconds. Which is very nice. So this is the skill setup that I'm using. Now, the gear setup is a lot different than before. As I mentioned, I was using Pariah and Deadlands Assassin, which gave me some nice damage. I was quite happy with it, but I found something even better. And that is Fury. And this is the reason why this damage, when you buff up 5.75, this will go to 6.2k with Fury, plus the Elusive Mist, 300 weapon and spell damage. So Fury gives you health, which is nice, stamina, which is fantastic, weapon and spell damage, very good. And when you take damage, your weapon and spell damage is increased by 23 for 5 seconds, stacking up to 20 times. This effect can occur once every half second. Upon reaching 20 stacks, the duration is doubled but can no longer be refreshed. Well, this means that at full stacks you have 460 weapon and spell damage, which is fantastic from a heavy armor set. So what I'm using is 3 pieces of Fury on the body and 2 pieces of jewelry. The jewelry pieces are infused with weapon damage glyphs, and the head and legs are impenetrable, and chest is reinforced to provide me with even more resistances. The second set that I'm using is a kinda stable stamina set in PvP these days. Plague Break. This set is just so good that you simply have to, well, no, you don't have to use it, but why would you not? Because this gives you so much damage that it's just crazy. It gives you offensive penetration, fantastic. Weapon and spell damage, more weapon and spell damage. And when you deal direct damage to an enemy who is not a plague carrier, you turn them into a plague carrier for 10 seconds, dealing 10.6 unbuffed K disease damage over the duration. If the plague is removed early, it explodes, infecting enemies within 8 meters of the carrier, dealing 3.9k disease damage. The explosion deals an additional 50% of the damage per enemy hit. This effect can occur once per attack and scales of your of the higher of your weapon and spell damage. What this means that if you have several enemies and you hit every one of them, they all will turn into plague carriers. There is no like one person limit. Like you have to have this plague carrier effect on just one person. You can have multiple plague carriers. The only condition is that they are not plague carrier before you deal the direct damage. Right, so for example, this guy, when it explodes and there is a group of enemies, it will apply the plague carrier effect to all of them. Beautiful. So why not? This is just free damage. And the mythic item that I'm using is not the good old Malakath. It's the Marking Ring of Majesty. Now I found that this ring is slightly more useful for my playstyle than Malakath. Malakath is just, let's face it, overpowered. It deals a lot of damage, and in my opinion, it should be toned down slightly. I would say to 15, maybe 13%, increasing your damage done. But this provides me with a bit more utility as well. So this gives me, at this moment, 200 weapon and spell damage, but it also gives me 2.3k armor. So this, since I'm not using Pariah anymore, this gives me some of that resistance back. So this is also infused. And I forgot to mention that the Plague Break on body plus Balorg, one piece Balorg, are all well fitted. I will get to why well fitted and not impenetrable in just a moment. So 2 impenetrable, 4 well fitted, 1 reinforced pieces on the body. Now I'm also using Plague Break Maul, which is sharpened, and that gives me a lot of penetration, which is extremely useful. On top of that, I'm using damage health poison because, again, free damage, why not? Now I will quickly mention the champion points. I've got Treasure Hunter, Rationer, Liquid Efficiency, Steed's Blessing. Green tree doesn't matter at all. In a blue tree, I have Focused Mending to improve the healing from the Intensive Mender, Resolving Vigor, and this. I'm also using Untamed Aggression, which is this skill. Deadly Aim increases your damage done with the single target attacks. Master at Arms increases your damage done with direct damage attacks. You can also, instead of Untamed Aggression, use either Resilience if you feel like you need more critical resistance, or you can use Ironclad, which is extremely useful skill as well for survivability. But I found out that I don't really need more survivability. And the red tree, Boundless Vitality, more health, Fortified, more armor, Pain's Refuge, which is, if I'm not mistaken, here, reduces your damage taken by 2% for every 2 negative effects active on you, up to a maximum of 20%. In PvP, there is always some negative effects. Always. So why not? And the last one is Celerity, which is down here. Now, you can also use a Juggernaut. You can also use Sustained by Suffering. But with this setup, I don't feel like I'm lacking Sustain. And there's like, you're more likely to be affected with a status effect, and a lot of them, than crowd control immunity, right? You have 100% of the time you have some status effect on you, like, well, let's say 99%. But crowd control immunity is there only for a couple of seconds. Another extremely useful skill, especially in Imperial City, is Slippery. When you are affected by disabling effect, you automatically break free for no cost. After using this effect, you become winded and cannot trigger this effect or others like it for 21 seconds. Why I say Imperial City? Because in Battlegrounds you don't have access to champion points. And you need PvP, Imperial City, this monster set for it. Zol the Ever Wakeful. When you break free, you release a wave of Watcher energy, causing enemies within 8 meters of you to become feared for 3 seconds. You also gain a 33 weapon and spell damage for each enemy hit for up to 6 enemies for 7 seconds. If you use this in Imperial City, this will automatically break you free, which means every time you get stunned and this effect can occur, this champion point node can activate. It will. This will activate automatically in that case. So it's very nice, especially in Imperial City. So let's go back to champion points. Celerity, movement speed. This is an orc, as I've mentioned. And there we are, Swift Warrior. As a stage 4 vampire, when you sprint, after 3 seconds, you become invisible. And as orc, you have 12% more speed, and the cost of the sprinting is reduced by 10%. With this champion point node, you're even 10% faster. As you can see, I would say this is pretty fast. And why stage 4 vampire? Because of this passive. It reduces the cost of sprint by 50%, so even more. And if you continuously sprint for 3 seconds, you automatically become invisible. Now, if you do a lot of battlegrounds, you will absolutely love this setup, because when you're sprinting, you're invisible. No one can see you. And as you can see, you can sprint almost indefinitely. Right? This is like, it costs almost nothing sprinting. So what I usually do is, it doesn't matter if it's capture the relic or a deathmatch or whatever mode it is, I will be everywhere faster than anyone else. On top of that, nobody will see me getting there. Well, the enemies, I mean. So what I abuse, and I literally abuse the hell out of it, is if it's a deathmatch and the enemy players are not really playing as a group, and they spread out, I go to their base, park myself against the wall, and since I'm technically still sprinting, as you can see the stamina goes down, I'm still invisible. And when they jump down one by one, I turn around and attack. Since you're invisible, you automatically activate the strike from shadows. You don't need to use the elusive mist. You automatically activate the strike from shadows. So all you have to do is buff up. And, well, let's try sprinting again. Okay, there we go. So you buff up. 6.1. Right. So this is extremely annoying for your enemies, because they will never know where you are. If it's capture the relic or the crazy king, you will always be somewhere faster than everyone else, unless they are orc, necromancer, vampire. So in battlegrounds, you get to a relic faster. You get to the flag, like the capture the crazy king or capture the flag, faster than everyone. And also, you're invisible, so no one can see you. You're capturing a flag, you park yourself against a wall. There's always a wall or something like that. No one can see you. You see all the enemies coming in, so you're ready for them. You can ambush them from behind, and they have no idea where you are. And again, you can sprint almost indefinitely. As you can see, like the stamina goes down, but like it's almost unnoticeable. This is also a fantastic escape tool. You found yourself outnumbered? Well, all you have to do is sprint away. They will always be slower, again, unless they are Orc, Necromancer, Vampire. But it's just fantastic, this whole vampire setup. You're extremely fast, you are invisible, and you can run for minutes. So, yeah. Once again, Orc, Necromancer, with the Fury, Plague Break, Mark and Ring of Majesty, Master's One Hand and Shield, Balorg, and you're good to go. So go out there, have fun. I thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.